We are now 259 days away from the midterms, and the administration is trying to put the Epstein files behind them. Over the weekend, Attorney General Pam Bondi notified Congress that all the materials had been released, along with an explanation of all the redactions made, plus a list of public figures whose names appear in the files. Here's a reminder. The Epstein Transparency Act that Trump signed into law actually required the Department of Justice to publicly release all of the Epstein files and to explain its redactions to Congress. But the deadline was nearly 2 months ago, and lawmakers, they are not satisfied. The Democratic co-author of the bill, Congressman Ro Khanna, responded on social media, quote, "The Department of Justice, or DOJ, is once again purposefully muddying the waters on who was a predator and who was mentioned in an email." His Republican counterpart, Congressman Thomas Massie, took it a step further yesterday.
I don't think Pam Bondi has confidence in Pam Bondi. She wasn't confident enough to engage in anything but name-calling in a hearing. And so, no, I don't have confidence in her. She hasn't got any sort of accountability there at the DOJ. When I asked her specifically who redacted Leslie Wexner's name from the one document that mattered, she couldn't give me an answer. She wouldn't give me an answer. But ultimately, it's her who is responsible for the document production.
Across Washington, the Department of Homeland Security is shut down, and the employees are going without pay as outrage over ICE and Border Patrol's aggressive tactics hold up funding negotiations. With that, let's bring in our leadoff panel. Michael Chanel is MS Now congressional reporter. Susan Glasser is here. She's a staff writer for The New Yorker. And Barbara McQuade, a veteran federal prosecutor and former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. All right, let's start with you, Michael. Is there enough support in Congress to force the Department of Justice to follow the law? Obviously, Democratic members of Congress have said that they are not taking the steps yet to sue because they need Republicans. We've heard talks about a discharge petition. Tell us what you know.
I can tell you that members on both sides of the aisle are not happy with how this process has been handled. And we know that's old news, right? That's been the case for a few weeks now. But the letter that was sent over the weekend has only inflamed those feelings. Since these documents started being released by the Department of Justice, there have been a number of concerns raised about these redactions. Victims' names, victims' personal identification information being shown out to the public, and then names of high-powered, high-profile individuals, theirs were being covered by redactions. A number of lawmakers on both sides of the aisle raised concerns about that. Now, what they were all looking forward to was this letter that the DOJ, by law, was required to send Congress. They hoped they would give some clarity on these redactions. In fact, the concerns about the redactions were only inflamed when members of Congress started going behind closed doors to view the unredacted materials. Finally, after weeks, that letter came this weekend, and it has only made matters worse for members. They're still unhappy with how the redactions were handled, and now they have this list of about 300 individuals whose names were mentioned in the files. And there's no differentiation between folks who were maybe in emails of news digests and news articles and those who were actually involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Ro Khanna said it's muddying the waters. So what action comes next? It remains unclear at this moment. Congress is out of session until next week. But certainly the frustrations have only grown after that letter was released.
It was literally just an aggregated list that included, for instance, President Obama, even though we know he doesn't show up in the files. It is a news article, but
Janis Joplin.
Exactly, who was 17 years old when Jeffrey. But what are the facts matter here? Susan, and I'm being facetious for the people at home. Susan, okay, this list of public figures that we're talking about, to the point that Michael just made, it included people who are long dead. Marilyn Monroe was on the list. Elvis Presley was on the list. Ronald Reagan was on the list. Also alongside people who had established connections with Epstein. So it seems like muddying the waters to me, but I guess the question is, what is actually the goal in doing this?
Well, look, let's put the context here around the Justice Department over the last year. If Congress has pretty much gotten out of the accountability and oversight business, they passed this law, but the Republican-controlled Congress in both the House and the Senate over the last year has basically made it very clear that when it comes to the standing up for the institutional prerogatives of Congress versus the executive branch, they're not going to do it. And so then the question is really, do we have any reasonable expectation on the part of the Justice Department that anyone's going to hold them accountable if they simply flout Congress here? What's the remedy for producing documents like this that clearly are almost insulting to the intention of the law. You know, the question is, what, if anything, is Congress going to do about it? And I'm very skeptical about that. And then you look at, in a bigger picture sense, well, why did we release these documents? There was a hope that there might finally be accountability. It seems like there's accountability for certain private citizens or people in academia or people in foreign countries. You know, the Prime Minister of Great Britain is embroiled in a scandal involving Jeffrey Epstein. He never even met Jeffrey Epstein, but there's members of Donald Trump's cabinet. There's Donald Trump himself who don't seem to be interested at all in answering questions about their closer relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.